Euromaxx highlights. And here's your host, Karin Helmstedt.
Hello there and welcome to our highlights edition. Glad you could join us. And before we get started, let's just have a quick peek at what's in the pipeline for today's program. Glamour Girls tire maker Pirelli puts out a collector's edition. Copenhagen by bike, a bicycle tour through the Danish capital. And Buena Vista, we visit a unique holiday home on the island of Lanzarote. Well, it's a fact of life that sex sells. And since 1964, that's been the underlying marketing ploy behind the famous Pirelli Calendar. The Italian tire manufacturer has always hired the most famous photographers in the world, the most beautiful women in the world to work on it. And it is, of course, an experience of a lifetime for them. Well, the end product is an exclusive gift for Pirelli clients, and last year they celebrated their 50th anniversary of production. But the spin-off effect of that milestone was an exclusive collector's album.
It's the most coveted calendar on the planet, but it's not one you can normally buy in a bookstore. Now, all those annual editions have been brought together in a single 600-page edition, together with previously unpublished material for a special anniversary publication.
To be a part of Pirelli Calendar is the more extraordinary, I would say, experience in fashion. It's what all the women, all the girls dream to be once, a model for Pirelli.
The girls we use in the Pirelli calendar are the kind of goddesses of today.
This is like really joining a club, a very exclusive club.
They're into making imagery and art and something collectible, using the best people in the world.
The calendar was launched in 1964 as a promotional tool for Italian tire maker Pirelli. It was then published more or less on an annual basis, but it was a strictly limited edition, with all copies reserved for celebrities and top Pirelli customers. That exclusivity was intensified because production costs were kept under wraps. The publication became a collector's item. For experts such as Steffi Schulze, director of renowned Berlin photography gallery Camera Work, there's much more to Pirelli than stylish photos.
They've worked continually on the quality and exclusivity. They also have the best photographers of the day. The result is a piece of cultural history.
Among the 36 photographers recruited over the years, most of them from the fashion world are truly big names, including Norman Parkinson and Richard Avedon. German photographer Peter Lindbergh has done 2 Pirelli calendars. So did Californian Herb Ritz. Annie Leibovitz is one of the rare female photographers. Peru's Mario Testino shot the 2001 calendar, and French fashion photographer Patrick de Marchelier the 2008 edition. And in 2011, fashion designer Karl Lagerfeld was entrusted with the job. Clive Arrowsmith shot 2 in a row in the 1990s. An absolute plum of a job for the British photographer and painter.
What makes it special for a photographer is it's a dream, the fact that they're going to pay you a lot of money at that time. Now they pay even more. But the thing is that you've got all the facilities. You know, I mean, it's like when you shoot for Vogue. Everybody will shoot for Vogue because it's in vogue, and everybody started to shoot for Pirelli because it became an icon. And when you work for them, you go to the desert for 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks, and you go on location, you deck all the costumes, and you can actually empower it with your own vision, as well as the art director's vision, of course, who's commissioned you. And they do, once they give it you, they let you go like a racehorse and you're off.
Each Pirelli calendar has its own artistic theme. In 1992, Arrowsmith's concept was Chinese zodiac signs presented against the backdrop of a desert in Spain. The previous year, Arrowsmith's calendar theme was heroines. But regardless of the concept, the person behind the camera, and the exotic locations, the one key factor with the Pirelli calendar is the glamorous women. For the first 3 decades, most of the models were not particularly well known. But since the mid-1990s, a fair number of those who've posed have been famous actresses like Sophia Loren or musicians like Jennifer Lopez. And then, of course, there are the supermodels. Some of them were still at the start of their careers. Naomi Campbell posed for the 1987 Pirelli, aged just 16. Kate Moss appeared for her first of 3 calendars in 1994.
It was the best job ever. We got to lie on the beach for half a day and then took a few pictures with her, and then had another day on the beach, did a few more pictures and went home.
The early ones were just really like girls on the beach in like exotic situations, a bit like Sports Illustrated is now, you know, like beautiful girls but with topless, lounging around on the beach, and then that was the sort of 60s. I didn't come until the 90s, and when, as I said, there was a women's liberation movement and feminist movement, and they didn't want them to be used as objects of sexy desire. They wanted it a bit more. Pirelli felt that it should be a bit more sensual but still have an artistic and creative quality. Well, nowadays everything has become much more overtly sexy with like a very stylish, classy men's magazine. Our ones were just toned down.
5 decades after its launch, the Cal, as it's known, has reached legendary status.
The 19th century Market Hall building in London's Covent Garden is a popular place for locals and tourists alike who flock there en masse to shop and, of course, to take advantage of the scores of fine eateries. But once a year, it does have a bit of added flair when it becomes an enormous avant-garde public gallery. Now, big artist names like Banksy, Jeff Koons or even Damien Hirst have provided the draw in years past, but this year the honours have fallen to a relatively little-known French photographer.
A huge cloud of balloons under the ceiling of the 19th century indoor market building at Covent Garden. The pulsing light represents a heart and the dynamism of this area of London. The installation is called Heartbeat, and it's by French artist Charles Pétillon.
Everybody on Earth knows exactly what is a balloon, the size. A child in China, in Europe, in London, in South America. Everybody knows exactly what it is. So this is a kind of universal language.
The installation, which includes some 100,000 balloons, will be on display for the next 4 weeks. The public art displays at Covent Garden are popular with both tourists and Londoners. Around 43 million visitors come here every year.
Extraordinary to look at, especially when you first walk in and you just see it fill sort of the whole roof up. It's really unusual and quite interesting.
I kind of feel like I want to get a BB gun though and shoot one of them, but it's not really allowed, is it, on artwork?
I can feel like a child with all these balloons. It's the only thing I can feel now.
The day before the installation is opened, the pulsating light is turned on for the first time. The final touches are made after the cafes and restaurants close at 11 p.m. The balloons are delivered already inflated. Numerous tests were conducted to make sure they don't lose any air during the month-long exhibition.
I always prepare very much my pictures and the installation. I need to work a lot. For many pictures I spend, for some pictures I've spent 3 years to succeed, to achieve the pictures.
A car filled with balloons was one of Pétillon's first works of art. He earns his money as an advertising photographer. Over the years, he's shot increasingly elaborate balloon photos. Pictures of his Invasion project are currently also on view in a pop-up gallery in Covent Garden. All of the artist's installations were made to be photographed. Now he's going a step further with his Heartbeat project. For the first time, one of his works is on public display. His other projects have always followed a distinct visual idea, but this one is different.
You have many things to discover in this installation because some parts of the installation are very wide and other parts are stretched. And maybe that's why it's difficult to have just one angle.
Visitors have a whole month to try to shoot the perfect picture and share it with their friends. After just 2 days, the reaction on social media sites is already even greater than for earlier Covent Garden projects, like when American artist Jeff Koons hung a giant rabbit here 6 years ago. Or in 2012, when British pop art icon Damien Hirst drew attention with a children's art project.
We look at what's popular, we spend a lot of time on Instagram, a lot of time in social media, see who's out there and who's new. And that's how we found Charles, because he was starting to create quite a voice in France.
Exhibiting his work at the same venue as some of the greatest names in contemporary art is a huge honor, says Pétillon, as well as a high point in his career. It doesn't bother him that his work will be taken down at the end of September.
This is my project, and after another project takes place here, and this is life. And this is an open gallery, so everybody have to create something.
For Charles Pétillon, Heartbeat could be a big milestone on the way to an international career. After 6 months of preparation, the French artist can sit back and share the view with the visitors to Covent Garden.
Well, speaking of gardens, back in the 17th century, the kings and queens of France wandered through strictly symmetrical, very formal French gardens, until one day someone brought back reports of the wild romance of the English landscape garden. Now, this leafy proliferation was a style of gardening that caught on across Europe gradually to varying degrees, and it's been a recurring element ever since. On a much smaller scale, Germans have always been known for their love of manicured lawns and very structured flower beds. But the wild seeds of rebellion lately have been sprouting up here too.
The natural garden. It's like a piece of nature left to run wild. But in reality, it's carefully planned. German landscape architect Petra Pelz specializes in natural gardens. She says there's a growing demand for gardens that look wild.
Everything's getting faster and more technical. We work at computers. We race from one place to another in our cars. So there's a growing desire to be in nature and the outdoors. We have less time, so the gardens need to be easy to look after. There are lots of things that have led to these gardens becoming so popular.
For a long time, formal gardens with carefully clipped lawns and hedges were considered the ultimate in garden design. But natural gardens have been around since the end of the 19th century. The focus is on wild grass and shrubs planted so they flourish without a huge amount of tending. And as Pelz's garden near the German city of Magdeburg shows, the natural garden retains its charm in all seasons.
You can't manipulate anything in such a natural garden. The plants need time, from blooming until dying. You can perhaps spread a bit of manure, but in fact you actually slow down and learn to live with these natural processes.
One of the pioneers of natural gardening is Piet Oudolf. The Dutchman is known around the world for his creations. They often look like wild flower meadows. He has his own garden on the edge of Hummelo, an hour's drive from Amsterdam. In summer, the garden is open to visitors.
Of course, the years that we were busy, 20 years ago, they had a lot of refuse, that people didn't like what we were doing, the traditional people, that we were using grasses that was not done in English gardens, and so we had still, and that faded away.
In 2009, Rudolf converted an abandoned elevated railway in New York into a park. The Lurie Garden in Chicago and other international projects have made the 69-year-old garden designer world famous. But Peltz also designs gardens for private individuals. She planned this 300-square-meter garden near Magdeburg for Katharina Stube.
If you look, you see the plants swaying in the wind or the sun shining through the grass. It's just beautiful.
Typical for private gardens is that only a few areas are left to run wild, while many others are carefully planned, like the arbor, the classic rose garden, or the manicured lawn. So can Germans, with their love of structure and organization, really allow their gardens to run wild?
There's always a group that drives a movement. But Germans love their garden gnomes. I don't think that will change.
Cultivated wildness may not be everyone's cup of tea, but it does underline a basic human need for reconnecting with nature.
Well, next up, we're headed to the beautiful Danish capital, Copenhagen, which is famous for its good design, its excellent restaurants, and, of course, its incredible bicycle culture. Now, not only is it a regular at the top of the world's most livable cities lists, but it's also now officially the #1 bike city in the world, with rentable bicycles at every corner and over 390 kilometers of designated bike lanes. Well, that makes taking in the sights like this one a real breeze when the weather cooperates, of course.
This small and unassuming statue in Copenhagen's harbour is visited by millions of tourists every year. The Little Mermaid has sat here since 1913 in honour of the fairy tale character created by Hans Christian Andersen. Most locals certainly don't sit around on the same spot all day, however. This is a city with more bicycles than residents. One of the most popular thoroughfares for cyclists is this downtown bridge. Anna-Katrine Herdes is an urban planner committed to cyclist-friendly projects.
I think it's just this thing about being on the street. And when you're in your car, you're sort of closed. You're away from your surroundings, you're not a part of it. When you're on the bike, you become part of the surroundings, and you become a part of the group of people that makes the city livable.
In this part of town, however, cyclists have to get off and push. The Strøel is one of the longest pedestrianised zones in Europe. There are shopping options galore along the 1.1-kilometre long strip. Royal Copenhagen is among the more traditional stores, producing and selling hand-painted porcelain wares. The world-famous company was founded in 1775 and is official purveyor to the Danish royal family. Some of its products are on display at Amalienborg Palace, the royal family's city residence.
We're a very small nation, but I think that this whole royal atmosphere sort of goes well along with this story about Denmark being sort of a fairy tale country.
Amalienborg was built in the 18th century and comprises 4 near-identical palaces. The soldiers who keep watch here day and night are one of the city's major tourist attractions. Those attractions also include Christiansborg, originally another residence of Danish royalty. It's now home to the Danish Parliament, Supreme Court and Prime Minister's office, but still has royal reception rooms used for state banquets and other events hosted by the monarch. Copenhagen also has its fair share of modern architecture. The Blue Planet was purpose-built to house the expanded National Aquarium. It's the largest facility of its kind in Northern Europe, with almost 500 different species on view, from sharks and sea lions to dwarf crocodiles, eels and exotic fish.
Visiting the National Aquarium of Denmark is like traveling around the world under the sea. You can see the big ocean, you can see the Nordic area, you can see others from Alaska, you can see the Faroe Island. So that's what makes this place fascinating, is that it's a world aquarium and not just like a local aquarium.
Back in the city, but still on the marine theme, there's the Nyhavn district. Nyhavn, or New Harbour, was an important global trading hub in the 17th and 18th centuries. Today it's known for its numerous restaurants and bars.
It's sort of very significant for Copenhagen to have the water that's close to where you hang out, and so for me it's just a very unique part of Copenhagen.
On offer are a range of Danish culinary specialties and beers.
There's so many people and music and so colorful, so really enjoying it.
There's always happy people, and in the summertime this is a special place to be.
The colourful side of Copenhagen. And if your cycling trip is over for the day, a great place to wind down.
And finally, a holiday on the Spanish Canary island of Lanzarote can be recommended pretty much all year round thanks to its mild climate, located just off the west coast of Africa. And a decidedly original stay can be had at the home of Oda and Yayo Fontes de Leon. Now, that couple found a forgotten underground cistern very close to their own house, and they've now converted it into a comfy holiday retreat.
The rocky Atlantic coast of Lanzarote Island, a barren volcanic landscape, and houses painted in traditional white. If you head inland, you'll find the village of Los Valles and the home of Yayo and Oda Fontes de Leon.
Hello, welcome. Come on in.
Yayo, who's Spanish, and Oda, who's German, met in Lanzarote 30 years ago. Today they rent out country homes. But this one is special. It's built largely underground.
This is what we call an aljibe, an old cistern. We turned it into a small country home.
For centuries, the villagers stored rainwater here. Now it's been turned into a holiday home. They discovered the cistern by chance. It's right next to their main house.
We couldn't see how big it was, so we crawled through a hole in the ceiling. We saw that the place was half full of water. I said to my wife, "This is great. Maybe we could build a small home here." And that's exactly what we did.
The couple have divided the cistern into 2 levels, downstairs for living and upstairs for sleeping. They've tried to keep the cistern pretty much as it was.
We decided right away that we wouldn't even touch the walls. All we did was seal the cracks. And the result is something that resembles a painting by a really good artist. It's wonderful, don't you think?
The home is decorated with works by local artists. Yayo was born in Lanzarote and he's proud of his heritage. This dragon sculpture was created by Javier Ibanez. The kitchen and bathroom are located in the above-ground unit. Yayo and Oda wanted to make sure that the layout of this part of the house complemented the style of the cistern unit. Of course, the cistern is very dark, and we decided that we wanted to provide a contrast to that. So we decided to bring in as much light as possible. That's why there's so much glass. Outside, there's a small garden and a stately palm tree. In fact, if it hadn't been for the tree, Yayo might not have discovered the location at all. It came about while he was out taking photos one day with a friend.
Here's one of the houses that we photographed back then. This is Los Valles. Here you can see a camel that's been chained to that palm tree. The cistern is right next to it, but all that's left of this scene today is the camel's chain.
Oda and Yayo Fontes de Leon now rent out the cistern. It's a unique place to stay in a secluded area of Lanzarote.
And that's all for this time. So until next time, thanks for watching and all the best from us here in Berlin. Tschüss und auf Wiedersehen.